Is there a skill that you didn't have that you had to learn and master in order to get to where you are?
I think you have to learn how to manage people. I think that's a hard thing to learn. How to manage different kinds of personalities. It's extremely challenging. You're going to hire people that are smarter than you, that are more ambitious than you. You're going to hire people that always think they're the smartest person in the room, and you've got to figure out how to deal with those people. And it's a challenge. It's never not a challenge. It doesn't matter. And the interesting thing about it is as your company becomes more successful, these problems become more pronounced.
Right.
Because turf wars ensue, and people want their piece of the pie.
Right.
And so you would think that everybody would behave themselves the more successful you become, but it actually is quite the opposite.
Yeah.
So that's always been a challenge for me, is to how to play referee and remain on friendly basis with everyone. So I think that's one of the hardest things in business.
So on a likes dislikes level, what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is The Godfather.
Why is that?
That's a movie I can watch. I can watch over and over and over again and never get bored. And I feel like I always learn something new. I always have a new insight about why something happened or didn't happen every time I watch it. So I love that movie.
Which
and The
one?
Godfather 1 and 2, I love.
1 and 2.
I can't really distinguish between them. They're both great.
Just kind of forgetting that 3 ever happened.
Yes, I don't watch 3.
Got it. So on the mafia movies genre, you're on the Godfather side versus the Goodfellas side.
Yeah, Goodfellas never struck a chord with me. I like The Godfather.
Cool. What's your music taste? What do you like in music?
I like current music. I like old music. I started off loving Pink Floyd when I was a kid, and I feel myself constantly reverting back to old music.
Yeah.
And the new music tends to be fleeting in my mind.
Right. Doesn't have a lasting.
It doesn't last like the old music. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm getting older. I'll tell you, as I've gotten older and as I have kids and family, and that's one of those things that gives, right?
Yeah.
You don't go to concerts.
Right.
You don't spend time thinking about music anymore. You don't listen to music as much. At least in my case, I don't. And so it used to be a big part of my life. It's become a smaller part of my life as I've gotten older.
As you prune the tree.
Yeah.
Right. Great. Is there a song on your iPod that you'd be embarrassed for people to find?
I don't think so, because I have very few songs on my iPod because I very rarely use an iPod, to be honest with you. I like to run, but when I run, I usually don't carry music. I like to think when I run. And so, if I have an iPod, it might be my wife's, and whatever's on there is fine.
That's what goes.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you listen to a lot of podcasts, or?
I really don't. I've really never gotten into that. I don't know why. I'll watch an occasional video online. If someone like Jason Calacanis or Mark Suster is doing something, people I both know fairly well. But I don't spend a lot of time listening to podcasts. When you're immersed in this industry, you kind of know what's going on,
Right.
and you've done it for a long time. You don't need to spend a lot of time digging deeper on things. You you get into the flow, and you always have a sense for what's going on.
Who's the person that's had the greatest impact on your life?
Oh gosh, I've taken bits and pieces from my father, my cousin. I've had mentors in business. One of my first mentors was at a publishing company called Ziff Davis, which is really where I started my professional career, the big computer magazine publisher, which is a very
PC world,
wonderful company to work for 15, 20 years ago. One of the best, at one point, one of the best places in the country. There was a guy named Bob Bader there who really took me under his wing and taught me how the computer industry worked, and how, from the point of view of a guy like Michael Dell, and how he likes to sell products to end consumers, and that taught me how to sell ads to people like that. And that taught me a lot about the computer industry and a lot about just business in general. And I still feel like that was the place where I learned my business foundation that I take with me still to this day.
Right.
And so I would say that the first few years of my career were very formative years, and my stint at Ziff Davis, I think, was probably among the most important to me.
So how'd you get that job?
Someone referred me. I was dating a woman, and at the time, and her friend worked there, and you either got in by going to Harvard or Yale or Princeton, or you got in via personal referral. And that was the way I got in. So I was very grateful for that. It was a big break for me.
Are you still friends with the person that got you referred?
I am, actually. Yeah. I'm friends with most of my ex-girlfriends.
Good. What's the best advice you ever got?
I got great advice from my dad one time that told me never to cheat on my expense reports. And it was, it's obviously a larger point than that, but
yeah.
I remember I got my first American Express card, and I said, geez, I could just charge lunch on this with my buddies one day and say it's a business meeting.
Right.
My father said, could, but it's probably not a very smart thing to do, and if you got caught, you'd be in trouble. They would probably follow you for the rest of your career, so you probably don't want to do something like that.
Right.
That was good advice.
That's great advice. Do you follow sports?
I do, but that's again one of those things that kind of falls by the wayside as you advance in your career. And I used to love lacrosse. I loved baseball. Those are probably the two sports I've been most passionate about in my life. I've played both of them a lot.
Yeah.
And I excelled at both of those sports and really enjoyed them and missed them. I miss lacrosse in particular.
Yeah.
There's something really special about that sport for me. I really, once a lacrosse player, always a lacrosse player.
Yeah.
That's something that you think about quite often, but it's not the kind of sport you can play
into your latter years.
Into your 40s, and you tend to not want to get hit anymore.
Right.
It's a pretty physical sport,
which makes it tough to be successful in the sport, right?
Yeah. So that has a pretty short shelf life. By the time you're about 30, you probably want to stop playing lacrosse.
Right. That's great. Do you follow any teams? Are you passionate about any teams?
I used to be a big Yankees fan. I still like the New York Yankees. I grew up going to Yankees games. My dad had a box at Yankee Stadium my whole life. And so, I've been to countless numbers of baseball games.
So this was during the 70s?
Yeah, my dad. I went to the World Series back in the 70s when the Yankees were playing the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And I've been to pretty much every World Series since.
Yeah.
Most playoff games and most World Series games that occurred in Yankee Stadium from the 70s till now I've been to.
Well, that's awesome.
I have a couple engineers that work for me that went to school in Troy. They went to RPI.
Okay,
yeah. One of the things that people don't realize is Troy's home to one of the top tech schools in the country.
Yeah. And then there's also Potsdam University.
There's a lot of great schools in that area. The problem is no one stays there.
Right.
That's the problem. So the reason why those areas don't get more built up is because all the smart people go to school there because it's a great place to go to school.
Right.
And then they fly away. They come into Silicon Valley. They go to Boston. They go to New York. They don't stay. And they're trying to change that. They're putting up all those nanotechnology facilities now in the Albany area. HP and AMD are building big nanotechnology research and fabrication facilities. So it's becoming a real hub for industrial engineering. So they're trying to keep some of the tech talent.
Yeah. So that they're now have the ability to recruit the local college talent.
Right. They're trying to keep some of them. Yeah. If they can keep some of them, then they'll be more successful at building the area up.
Yeah. That's
it's actually a fairly large area. It's the city that's gotten decayed.
Yeah.
The city of Albany has gotten smaller and more run down.
Yeah.
And the suburbs have gotten massive.
Huh.
So the suburbs around there, Albany, Schenectady, and Troy, it's a fairly large area. It's large and flat.
Right. Is that something you would like to see? You'd like to see the Albany area?
I kind of lost my ties to the area, and maybe someday I'll go back and try to help in some way. I know that I know the mayor, and my family is pretty friendly with the mayor of Albany, and so I would have a way to probably assert myself and be helpful. But my family would love for me to come back home, but the challenge seems pretty daunting.
Yeah.
But I've thought about it.
Yeah. So do you like raising your kids in New York City?
I do. I mean, New York's really expensive.
Yeah.
And even if you think you have money, New York's will humble you. But it's a great place to grow up if you can afford it.
Yeah.
And he's with the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
In terms of the kids he's hanging around with and that sort of thing. And so you it's hard to not like that.
Did you ever have a moment where you were about to move to Silicon Valley?
I did move to Silicon Valley from 99 to 2001 to work at Alta Vista.
Okay.
And when the bubble burst, I moved back. Like I said, I've thought about moving to warmer climates many times, but I just haven't done it.
Yeah. The pull of New York is...
Well, New York's kind of addicting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
With names, I think you got to try to make it simple. As simple as possible.
Yeah.